Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about India's explanation, rather feeble when it talks about accidentally firing a missile into Pakistan. Of course, it raises questions as far as their own capability of handling their technology is concerned. We've had Moeed Yusuf also raise these questions as far as India handling their sensitive technology is concerned. Certainly raises issues as far as a nuclear nation's missiles malfunctioning this way and the ramifications of that for their neighbors, among other things. We'll be talking about what that means for Pakistan. And of course, the fact that they have admitted that this is an accidental, accidentally fired missile, a technical malfunction, whatever they may call it. But at what point do we realize whether it's actually accidental? And if it is, then we have to definitely question their capability of handling these missiles. We'll be talking about that, and in the later part of the program, we'll also be talking about Indian state elections and their impact on Indian national politics, also overall in India. As far as extremism is concerned, as far as Modi getting stronger and its own ramifications for minorities are concerned, for overall their BJP's performance and the future of this Hindutva in India. We'll be talking about all of that. To start off with, I have with me Yasir Janjua, who is a security analyst, and Lieutenant General Naeem Khalid, retired Naeem Khalid Lodi, who is a former defense minister. Let's start with General Naeem. General Saab, overall, as far as this new, I don't know what one would call it, stunt is concerned, as far as India from across the border, how would you take this? Because of course it does raise questions as to their own capability of handling these this kind of sensitive technology, and it also has considerable ramifications for us as a neighbor to such a country.
Thank you very much. Just give me a minute to just explain to our viewers that whenever we talk about a strategic system like this, what are we talking about? There are three main components. One are the warheads, of course, the delivery systems, the rockets, and the third most important is the command and control system. So no strategic concept is complete, no strategic system is complete unless you have a very comprehensive command and control system. In command and control system, you have negative controls, which means that if you don't want to launch a thing, there are a number of controls which ensure that you no mischief is there, nobody can launch it. There are positive controls, which mean that if you want to launch it, it must be launched. We'll not talk about that. Then there are, if some mistake happens, there are full, safety measures. One of them is a self-destruct mechanism, that if something happens, and so I do not buy this idea of a mistake or capacity as far as technology is concerned. I don't think we should be duped in that. We should not be that naive.
Why do you think at this point India chose to play this this kind of stunt then, in your opinion?
So that is the question, that what could be the intent. So I, first of all, as far as I am concerned, as a partial expert of this subject, I would rule out any technical mistake or any problem or any such hiccup. I would say it was intentionally done for a purpose, and you are asking what could be the purpose. The purpose could be to know our prowess of detecting these flights, monitoring these flights, and mashallah, with the I would say hats on for all our people who really did that. They tracked it, they found it, they detected it. But a submarine coming into our waters, shallow waters, and then by mistake, this thing being done by mistake. There is one thing which I would like to emphasize, that India is trying to control what we call it escalation ladder, the dominance of escalation. And I think we should not keep quiet on that. Just, giving a counter statement is not enough. We got to go to UN Security Council. It is a very dangerous thing. A nuclear capable missile has crossed the border and landed into Pakistan, and we need to do much more than what we have done so far.
Right, let me come back to you. Ji, Yastab, do you agree? I mean, as far as the fact that it's not accidental, one. Ji.
You're pitching me against a very senior officer who's been the Secretary of Defense.
But I do want your opinion.
But my opinion is a little different, and
Fair enough.
I beg to disagree with him.
Ji.
India is a rogue state, and they have proven yet again that they are a rogue state.
Okay.
He's right in pointing out that the command and control systems have to be in place, and then there has to be a self-destruct mechanism. We have seen that their uranium is stolen and nobody knows about it.
Okay.
In this particular case, there were 3 Indian Airlines aircraft, a Qatar Airways aircraft, and a Saudi Airlines aircraft mid-air. If there had been a collision or a disaster, that would have become very, very nasty, catastrophic. So there is definitely the lack of technology, and this is not the first time their missile system has failed. In the past also, this BrahMos missile they used to be very proud of, and this one that they were or they have been exposed with is the next generation of BrahMos, which has high altitude and supersonic speed but can go to short ranges. And they have been exposed, and good luck for us, all their technology is now sitting on our table and we know how to counter it. So I am under no illusion, and I'm not going to give them any hope of saying, the Indians of hope of saying, look, we did it deliberately. No, they are bad at their technology. And I tell you, day before yesterday, the Indians invited me on the television. They thought that they've done something, and soon after the DGISPR conference, and soon they realized, oh, this has been a blunder on our side, and 10 minutes later they said, oh, sorry, we've had to cancel the program because of whatever reasons. The Indians know they made a blunder, and they made a big blunder. They did not know how to control it. If there was a self-destruct mechanism...
But doesn't that make it even more? For example, for 1 second, if I go with what you're saying, doesn't that make it even more dangerous?
It is very dangerous. I'm not saying that it's not dangerous. We are all very lucky that this was not a nuclear warhead-loaded missile.
Right.
The amount of destruction and what would have happened is beyond comprehension. However, India is a rogue nation, and we have known it. As the General Sahib was also saying, their submarines come into the Pakistani waters astray or by design. Nobody would send a conventional submarine by design into enemy territory, because a conventional submarine, the moment it is detected, it's dead. It is targeted, then they cannot escape being targeted. So they made mistakes like that 3 times in the past few years with the submarines. They made a mistake like this by entering the Pakistani airspace when they sent their aircrafts. And on 27th February, they met their fate. They keep making these mistakes, thinking, oh, we can get away with this. This one was a blunder. They did not have, and you've seen in the past many times their missiles have failed. Mid-air, they have failed. They have not been able to reach target, or they have exploded mid-air. This is exactly what happened. They did not know how to control it. Halfway through the flight, it turned right and entered Pakistan. So any responsible state, as the National Security Advisor has been saying, and the DGISPR, any responsible state would not do that. Any stupid rogue nation with clowns sitting on the technology would only do that.
Right, okay. General Sahab, I hope you've been following. As far as Yasir Sahab is concerned, he doesn't agree that this was not an accident. But regardless, even if we suppose, if we go with either theory, whether it was an accident or not, the point is how dangerous it is for a country like, for a neighbor like Pakistan to have such, to have somebody across the border who can either do this deliberately, or this kind of what can one say, this kind of trickery or whatever one may call it, or they are doing this. This is an accident, so to speak. Whatever it is, it has its own ramifications for us.
True.
And how do we move forward from this? I mean, of course, we've said so. We've agitated on international fronts also.
This is the right way of debating, that whatever comes to my brother's mind, he must express that, and he's doing that. Whatever comes to my mind, I'm doing that. What he's saying, that is a bad scenario. What I'm saying is the worst scenario. So between bad and worst, there can be a small range of things. What I'm saying is that for responding to such a scenario, we must assume it to be the worst scenario. Otherwise, if you just respond to a bad scenario, which means your response is below a certain level up to which you can go.
So
So I'm
how do
not
you
saying that.
respond in this case? How do you respond?
I think our Foreign Office should straight away invoke UN Security Council, because this is not a small thing. Nuclear capable missile landed in a country, neighboring country, and it is not only a matter of being rogue or matter of having less technical prowess, which of course it is, that should be highlighted. But more than that, the intention should be highlighted, and the worst scenario should be painted. Why should we not paint the worst scenario? I mean, I do understand it between the bad and the worst. So what I'm suggesting is that our response should be taking into account the worst scenario. And for that, we need to go to UN to the highest level and sensitize the world that a nuclear power. And one more thing I would like to add, that I think we should also sensitize our friends Chinese, that even if it is a thing which can go out of control, it should even be bothering the Chinese, because they're also the neighbors. So together we should try to
I think
launch a
as far as
protest.
this is
And
concerned, I will come back to you. Yasir Sahab, as far as sensitizing China is concerned, I'm sure all the neighbors of such a state are equally concerned when this kind of an incident happens. And certainly, I think General Sahab is right that there should be perhaps a collective step. Because everybody is then under equal threat with a country like that, right across the border, with playing these kind of accidents or whatever one may call it.
See, normally when a state goes on to testing something like that, it informs all the neighboring countries, it informs all the aviation assets in the region, because there are flights flying over those regions. Nothing like that happened. What I'm surprised about the Indians is that they had the audacity, even if it was a mistake, somebody was fiddling with the system. That is why the mistake, or whatever you call it, has happened. And now, General Sahab is right that we have to take it up officially along with our friends, and especially with the countries to be on our side. Those were involved and who could have been at risk, like the Saudi Arabian Airlines and the Qatar Airways flight, which was mid-air. And then we should take it to the United Nations and tell them this is not the first time the Indians have done this. They have done this with their missiles in the past and they failed, and they have done this with their submarines, and they cannot be trusted. Their uranium has been stolen number of times and then caught eventually, but number of times it has been stolen because they don't have effective controls. And this is a time for everybody else to see, especially after 9/11, when people were saying, especially the West was saying, oh, the Pakistani nuclear weapons are not in the safe hands and they can fall into the hands of Taliban and the terrorists. Look, here's the litmus test. Not even once have you found out anything happening in Pakistan like this. Because we got National Command Authority, we've got SPD, and we've got layers of security who are looking at all these assets. And ASFC, obviously, I forgot to mention. Now the question is, does India have something like that, a mechanism like that, where they have the command and control systems in place? No, they haven't. If there was, then there would have been actions to self-destruct it. But we see that there was not. So yes, we must take it at the appropriate levels, at the diplomatic levels, and raise this issue that there must be oversight, the international oversight of Indian missile system, i.e. International Atomic Energy Agency must be involved, and they must come and look at it. What if this was nuclear armed?
And another issue, of course, is that we were not, even if this was an accident, we were not informed right after. Which is another issue as far as, the Indian authorities would have acted more responsibly and informed Pakistan, which is also something that Moeed Yusuf raised. He said that, if it was an inadvertent launch of a cruise missile that had taken place, then Pakistan should have been informed as a responsible nation. If they want to call themselves that, they should have they should immediately have told us.
That's an international protocol, as I told you.
Right.
Any test that takes place, you inform your neighbors and you inform all others in the region.
Ji, General Sahab.
Yeah, I think that is true. They should have.
There's a problem with
I
audio.
think we should also take out a minute to encourage our own people who actually picked up this missile the moment it was launched. all along the track that, and the moment it turned towards us. And I think they also found out that it is without a warhead, although they have not yet said that, and more details will be coming. So I think we must appreciate our own technical prowess, our own alertness, that the way we, tracked it, the way we found out where it is coming from and where it is going to. But I agree with Jinjua Saab that we must include all those countries whose aeroplanes were,
India has tested us multiple times, which is what Yasir Saab also said. You know, the 22nd February is just right, has just passed, where that whole incident involving.
And, I think this is a good time to prepare a complete folder about all those proliferation things which have happened in India. He was talking about the fissile material being exported and all that. I think I agree with him, and
I think General Saab is right when he says perhaps a dossier of what has happened and how many times, multiple times, we've seen this kind of irresponsible actions ensue from across the border. Perhaps is the order of the day now.
We should, but how ironic! What a day! I should be mentioning this, that this missile, rightly or wrongly, was launched on the day when the no confidence move was being tabled against the Prime Minister. So the government is being bogged down, or so to say, pitched against the people who are trying to destabilize the government. We have a responsibility, the Foreign Minister and his team have a responsibility to make a dossier, as General Saab was saying, and show it to the world. But when we are trying to fight the external enemies, there are internal forces which are trying to destabilize the country for no good reason.
Right.
So those people also should realize that, look, what we've got on our neighbors is a real situation, and always we are faced with something that we have to challenge or we have to respond to. However, our attentions are being drawn to the directions which are not required. But we must make a dossier and we must take it to the people, to the world, and tell them what it is.
Of course, we've had the Foreign Office say that they, call for a thorough investigation and independent investigation into what's happened. Also summoned the Indian envoy to register our, this violation to our airspace and all of those things. But overall, as far as this incident is concerned, also in the background of what's happening in India at this time, the kind of India that we're looking at now, today, it seems, different from what it was a couple of years ago, as far as extremism is concerned, as far as the Hindutva movement overall is concerned, as far as violation of minorities is concerned. And I want to talk about all of those later, but that in line particularly with these kind of actions make it even more serious. And of course, perhaps give more credence to the claim that General Saab is making when he's saying that this is not accidental.
That is why I was saying that these factors that you have just counted, the internal factors in India, the internal factors in Pakistan, and not the first time that this thing has happened. That is why I'm challenging the intentions. And whatever Foreign Office has done so far, or ISP has done so far, that is between the two countries. We have responded. We have given there our mind. But what I'm suggesting is, and I think Yasir Saab is agreeing with me, that we need to internationalize it, and we need to do it immediately, because delaying our response will actually dilute our stance. So I would say that we have done well so far, but we need to raise the level, because, as I said, that okay, it can be an accident, but also it can be intentional. So why not we take it the worst scenario, that it was intentional. And based on that, we should, make our strategy, future strategy, that how to fight it out.
Yasir, I don't think anybody can argue with what General Saab is saying.
What he's saying is that let's call it a worst case scenario and pitch the case in the light of that, look, this
and
is
also pitch it, as a dossier of successive events that have happened till now.
There's no denying, General Saab is absolutely right, that the worst could have happened, and let's think that this was the worst that could have happened.
And so, also the fact that we can unite all the neighbors, because it's of equal concern to anyone. If it can happen to Pakistan, and these mistakes invariably do, then why can't they happen to other neighbors, like for example China, which is a fair point.
I mean China, and then there are innocent neighbors or people in the region, countries in the region, like as I said, Qatar Airways flight was on mid-air. So we have a case to go to them as well.
Right.
Look,
right.
this is the country you are faced with. Your flight could have been attacked or hit, and you could have lost many lives. Similarly, Saudi Airlines.
Right.
So all the countries in the region, China would otherwise be there with us, because China is affected. It's a stakeholder in this situation, because it's a neighbor. So we have to rally around people, and diplomatic efforts from the Foreign Office, from our embassies abroad, have to be intensified, and once again launching a dossier that tells the people, look, this is a country, a rogue nation, literally a rogue nation.
And such a huge rogue nation, you know, probably under the command of a extremist madman, General Saab, who is steering it into, you know, more and more dark waters as far as, you know, raising, we talk about violations, again we talk about extremism, we talk about, you know, overall human rights violations that we are seeing at this time in India.
So all the suspicions which the West was raising against Pakistan about our nuclear assets, about our command and control, about things going into the hands of extremists, all that has been proved across the border. The Indians, they have themselves accepted, as far as their technical prowess is concerned, the lack of technical prowess is concerned. We have exposed their intentions. We can do it even more. And the extremist, you know, people at the helm of affairs, those are well known. So I think all those apprehensions which were being voiced from various quarters are now totally, you can say, there as far as India is concerned. So we must raise that. We must reinforce already the fears which are there in the mind of the West and other, you know, areas in the world. And this is a good time to do that.
Right. Yasir Saab, when we talk about agitating against India, certainly, you know, it's the responsible thing to do. But what are some of the other measures you think we need to take? Because we are constantly under threat. And like you said, you know, as far as our military is concerned, as far as our government is concerned, it has to be constantly vigilant. And we saw from what happened on the 22nd February that it is, from the incident that happened with the Indian pilot is concerned. And then what happened also a couple of days ago as far as this missile is concerned. But what other actions within our own borders, within our own, you know, airspace is concerned, can we take? I mean, I'm sure that as far as our Air Force is concerned, our Army is concerned, they're always on alert. That goes without saying. See,
an incident like this is very, very delicate, you know. And when you have 6 minutes to respond to, any response, any emotional or irrational response can trigger a war actually. What if this was a nuclear armed warhead there? So the government of Pakistan, the defense forces are very alert, and our defense system, air defense system, is impregnable. And that is why, and the Indians must be having sleepless nights, that the moment this was launched, we knew about it.
Right.
So when you say, what else can we do? Well, there always is a need for improvement. And that is why knowing your adversary or knowing your enemy is very important. And Indians have given it to us in a plate. When they had this developed, the BrahMos missile, the supersonic intercontinental ballistic missile, they always used, oh, we have superiority over Pakistan because it can fly at supersonic speeds and go at heights that Pakistan can never achieve. Now they've given it to us in a plate. We can do reverse engineering, we can do develop a response to it, we can do anything to it. But as far as our defense is concerned, it is impregnable. We are prepared, as DGISPR said, we were completely prepared. And we had the responsibility not to shoot it down or not to do anything prematurely, because it was otherwise coming down, and we, alhamdulillah, had no loss of lives. Allah has been very kind. However, now that they've given us in the plate, we'll do whatever needs to be done about this particular thing as well. See, the thing is, it's not the gun, but the man behind the gun that matters.
Right, which is what
Indians bought the Rafales and they thought, oh, we've surpassed Pakistan. No, you need a pilot to do that. M.M. Alam did it in 1965 with an inferior aircraft. They downed 6 Indian aircrafts which were superior. If they bought S-400 from Russia, they think they can do it. You have to have the people to run it, and they do not have the technical know-how or the will to do that. Alhamdulillah, in Pakistan, we have our people who are sitting alert on the borders at all times. Our pilots are available 24/7, one call away, in their control rooms, sitting ready to respond to anything like this. So as far as we have to continue responding to these threats, on these evolving threats, we are still prepared, and we are not worried about anybody like India.
Right.
Because their technology doesn't match ours.
Right, or their skill, like you said.
Yes.
Ji, General Saab, your quick comments, and then we'll move on to the next part of the program. I think there's a problem with audio. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you, General Saab. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. Yasir Saab, thank you for joining us. We'll take a short break and come back and talk about the state of India at this time as far as the Hindutva is concerned, the minorities are concerned, the extremism, and the overall state elections and their ramifications. After a short break.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Welcome back. We'll be talking about Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's resounding success in his electoral victory as far as his these state elections are concerned, despite the ramifications of what's happening as far as India is concerned, despite the rise in extremism, despite the rise as far as Hindutva is concerned, all of those things. But the win which is particularly alarming for all of those watching the human rights violations in India at this time, the rising minorities violations, the fact that the freedom of religion at this time seems to be curtailed when we've seen the hijab incidents. In the background of all of that, Modi's victory again seems particularly alarming and will have its own ramifications for India as a state and also for its neighbors and also for the world. The fact that, of course, it being such a huge state. All of that today, we'll be discussing all of that. I have with me Altaf Hussain Bani, who is a Kashmiri leader. Thank you so much for being with us. I also have with us Raja Kaisar Ahmed, who is an international relations expert. Thank you for joining us. Ji, Altaf Sahab, we've talked about what's happening overall as far as India is concerned a couple of times, and I think everyone is watching India burn, so to speak, as far as the state of minorities is concerned, as far as, and yet, we see Modi's enduring popularity. What else can one call it when we see what's happened as far as these state elections are concerned? Also, it seems like he's geared for a third term. In the background of all of that, how do you see things now, when we look at what will be the scenario if that does happen for India?
You see, what we have been discussing since long now, past, I think now from 10, 15 years now, over the period of time, we have seen the rise of the Hindu extremism in India. And that is the baseline for the Modi's and BJP's electoral win in past and also in present. Modi has been successful in one way terrorizing the minorities, and on the other way cementing the vote bank of the Hindu population. His adversaries like Congress and others, Congress has failed throughout the election campaign and even before to counter the Modi's agenda, what Modi has, the way Modi is pursuing the extremist policies, the way Modi is terrorizing the minorities in India, and what even recently what the human rights experts have spoken about how the Indian minorities are treated. But Congress has failed. Congress did not show the resolve to counter it.
Right.
While as we see the man, Kejriwal, who in a way for Kashmir and for other places, he was with the BJP. He pursued the same policy as the BJP had. He has no if and buts. But when it came to the farmers' protest, he was all with the farmers' protest, and that's why he defeated in Punjab the BJP.
Right.
So we see in future, we can see there is no substitute leadership as yet to Modi or the BJP. Congress is in a fragile situation. They don't have a proper leadership to guide them or to pursue the policies as Congress has been. But at the same time, we see some rise of some regional parties. They are also paving the way for the Modi's win in these elections and BJP's win.
Right, let me come back to you, Rajasab. There's no two opinions about the fact that I think the world has also seen what happened recently as far as the hijab ban was concerned. Overall, the policies of this second term successively as far as Modi's government is concerned have gotten worse for minorities. The tolerance level in India has gotten minimal. In that kind of scenario, certainly for him as a strategy to deflect from the economic situation in India, post-COVID crisis in India, all of those things seems to have been working if you look at what's happened as far as these state elections are concerned.
Well, thank you, Marukh. That's absolutely right. Your point that BJP has made way over again. And the reason is very simple. And the reason for that matter is because and BJP in Uttar Pradesh, they had been able to convince people over one point. People are not concerned about what Yogi Adityanath can do for Hindus. They are just merely concerned with the fact that what he can do against Muslims. This is what is the mainstreaming of communalism. This is the mainstreaming of hate. This is how they have led to institutionalization of communal orientation of India. And I always believed, and I have made this point at several occasions, and I repeat that point, that this is not actually BJP versus Congress. This is actually the idea of Indian nationalism versus Indian communalism versus Hindu communalism versus Hindu majoritarianism. And the time has proved that Indian nationalism was actually a detour. It wasn't a reality. This tryst was just an illusion. India is returning to its originality. It is not transgression. Please don't call it retrogression either. Yeah, India is actually returning back to, or India is making an evolution into what India always wanted to be. This is what they always aspired for, a Hindu polity, a Hindu Rashtra, which is aligned along the lines of Rashtra and Samiti, along the lines of Jati. So this is what they always clamored for. This is what they always aspired for. And this is always they hankered for. So that is why India is actually making an evolution to what India always wanted to be. So that's why this win does not come as a
But
surprise.
Keshav,
And
when you say that India, this is what India want, you saying it's what it aspired to be. Then how does that go with side by side with the kind of secular Indian image that India tries to tell to the world? The narrative of how it is according to them, of course it's a false narrative, but what they send out into the world internationally, that it is where they honor all religions, all of those things.
that's a very particular question, and I appreciate this question. But the fact is that India is successfully evading this image of Indian secularism. You see that which party is considered to be emblemizer of Indian secularism? It's the Indian National Congress. And let me reiterate a fact over here that in 2019's elections, in their manifesto and in their public speeches, Congress did not use the word secular even for once. So that is the kind of pressure they are facing at the hands of BJP. It is actually Hinduization of polity. This is actually, as I stated earlier, that now Hindu nationalism is not the reflection of ancient times. It is the manifestation of contemporary modern formation, and we have to live with this reality from now on. We need to accept this fact that Hindutva is now a political, ideological, and social reality in India. And it is likely to stay at least for the foreseeable future. Because you
Let
see,
me come back to
like
you.
one
I'm
is
going
the
to go to
romantic.
Altaf Saab. Ji, Altaf Saab, that is also what Kais Saab is saying is particularly alarming. One has to agree with it also. But, when you talk about in India where this is what the politics is, this is what you're going to get votes on, and this is what Kais Saab is saying. He's saying that, it made Congress, which is a liberal party, shy away from using, that, right. So when you talk about all of those things, then overall, how safe are minorities? How safe are other religions? Will it not eventually lead to the kind of breakage which was, a fait accompli as far as Pakistan was concerned? Because there were issues about Muslims and Hindus coexisting together.
See what Kaisar Saab is saying, it is the reality of the fact. I already earlier said from last 10, 15 years, we have seen in policy shift in India and Indian politics going towards the extremism and radicalization of Hindutva. And what Kaisar Saab said, it is what India really wants to be. Hindu Rashtra, it's for that. And for that purpose, they have drawn their policies, the way they manage their election campaigns and all that, leaving the development agenda and all these agendas. If you see before this election campaign, when this started, you see hijab and other things, these were the particular things which were inducted in that, and to create a fear among the minorities in India, and to get more and more Hindu vote. And as Kaisar rightly said, Congress or others were not in a position. In Congress, we have seen a few leaders like Subramaniam or sorry, so it was not Subramaniam, the of Home Minister of India and also Shashi Tharoor sometimes do speak of that. Otherwise, you won't see the Congress speaking on these agendas of the BJP
Because
they
overall
fear
the environment,
they
a
fear the
backlash
environment,
or
the
a loss
backlash
in-
of that, and what
Right,
it is there.
or of course they've seen that as far as votes are concerned,
And
they're
so,
going to
so
suffer.
we have seen votes. They do take votes, but they are not in a position to win the elections anymore in current atmosphere. And as we see, the India is fast becoming, and we should believe in it. As Kaisar Saab said, we have to live with it, that India is now no more a secular or democratic India.
But Kaisar
It is
Saab,
fast becoming.
So will we see, let me ask you this, will we see then rising political parties with religious manifestos, so to speak? Muslims also, and we saw that happen when we look at Pakistan, India. There was no choice for Muhammad Ali Jinnah. If we talk about history, we talk about Congress, and then All India Muslim League, all of those things happened because there was that kind of discrimination to begin with.
It was Qaid Azam's vision at that time, which he says at that time that
this is
what
would
India
happen,
really
right.
is, and that's why he demanded a separate state for the Muslims of the subcontinent, and that is proving now the right. What Qaid said at that time, that's proving now the right. That is happening in India, and the Muslims or the other minorities in India are facing the extermination threat in India, and it will have a consequential effect in the neighborhood also. We have seen over the period of time in Pakistan, we see a shift from religious to the democratic parties, but now in India we see a different shift.
Quite the contrary. Kaisar Saab, do you think that we will have other, of course, then to voice their own issues, to voice their own problems, other minorities will have no other option but to have their political parties with religious manifestos, under the banner of religion?
Well, Marukh, this is something which is very ironical, and this is actually taking place. The something which is pretty alarming. You see that in the modern times, it is the first instance where the notion of ethnicity and the notion of nationality has been changed. In the modern nation state paradigm, the notion of nationality is civic. India has made that as an ethnic reality, an ethnic construct by amending Citizenship Amendment Act. So this is an uncharacteristic change. And as you were earlier pointing out, Jinnah Sahib stands vindicated. He stands vindicated because you see he was very prophetic when he said that the Muslims who are opposing the creation of Pakistan will spend rest of their lives proving their loyalty to India. This is actually happening right now in India. Minorities are under tremendous pressure, and then you see something which is very alarming to me as the reader of the Indian politics and as the reader of Indian history, is something which is very alarming, that alternatives are even from the Hindu traditionalists, not Indian secularists. You see, Aam Aadmi Party, it shares ideological cadres, if not, in the form of RSS and that divisive agenda, but at the same time, they do not negate that Hinduism which is being promulgated by BJP. Aam Aadmi Party had been very uncharacteristically egregious when this Shaheen Bagh protest started taking place. So that's why, and over Kashmir and over all other issues, even per se Pakistan, they have the same voice. They have the same statement. They have the same testament as BJP has. So that is why the alternatives, even in the form of Aam Aadmi Party and other regional parties, they are also harping the same tune. But the only factor is that they might not be the members of RSS. So that's why this Hinduization of Indian polity is something very serious. It is something very alarming, and it is leading to an onslaught against the minorities. I have said it on repeated forums, and I'll say it again, that India needs to be declared as a country of particular concern for minorities under International Religious Freedom Act of 1998. So under this IRFA, India needs to be declared as the country of particular concern, because what is right now happening in India, it is not something which can be taken lightly or which can just easily be scapegoated, because Muslims, because Sikhs, Dalits, and all other minorities.
Right, Raja Sahab, unfortunately we're running out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Raja Kaisar Ahmed, Altaf Hussain Wani Sahab, thank you for joining us. Of course, as far as the state of affairs, as far as from this win in the state elections of BJP is concerned, certainly, fears arise not only for Pakistan but for the region also, as far as the ramifications of this kind of hatred, this kind of inciting of hatred and religious persecution, also banning of the kind of curtailment of religious freedom that we've seen under this Modi government. All of those issues arise and are particularly alarming for the region and for the world, and perhaps there needs to be some kind of reaction overall when you see a country of India's size falling under this kind of persecution of minorities and rise in Hindutva movement that we are seeing. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.